Hello there, it's Sarah from Paper Lovely. Thanks for joining me today. So it is safe to say that I became a little bit obsessed with this stitched heart die from the Spellbinders Small Die of the Month of December, and I made bunches of them. I'm also giving you a look here at the stamp set that I pulled in from Stamp Market. This is called Love You Always. I used that for my sentiments when I was creating all these cards. So for most of these cards, I went with 3 different tones of one shade or one color, and I stitched those with some coordinating thread, and now I'm layering these up in sets of 6 to create the fronts for my cards. So the colors I'm using for this one here are also from Stamp Market. They are Fresh Pink, Fuchsia, and Party Pink. And on my blog post, I will notate next to the photos what colors of the floss I used, which will coordinate with the floss that I'll link as well. I purchased it off of Amazon. So it's not DMC, but it does have numbers like DMC does. I have grabbed a panel here from my Nina paper, and it is trimmed to 3 1/4 by 8 1/4. That's going to fit a slimline card base. I'm stamping out the sentiment hello along the bottom portion of my front panel, and then I will use the same thing for the inside, and I will add love across the middle there. I've got a card base I made from some of that fresh pink cardstock. I'm going to add some ATG and place my front panel down on top of that card base. And then while I'm at it, I'll go ahead and add my inside panel as well. Then I'm going to layer up all of my hearts. So to attach these, I'm going to use some 1/2" Scor-Tape. It is a little bit tricky peeling this away from the portion that has the thread there. It's sort of a mix of thread and cardstock that you're attaching that tape to. So I did see, and you'll see later on in the video, I found that it was a lot easier if I took my bone folder and ran that across the back just to really get a good stick. It was still a little tricky pulling off that backing. It just was a little bit time consuming, but I feel like that was the best way to get a really good stick and not have to deal with any liquid glue, which I was worried would leak out or might get in the way of me arranging the hearts the way that I needed them. Because I have that portion stamped at the bottom there, I needed to make sure that these were lined up pretty much perfectly so that they were spaced out even and didn't go over that sentiment. So there you can see I just laid everything out, and I'm going to peel away this backing, trying very hard to hold that in place and not let it move, but I did eventually have to pick this up and use one of my pokey tools to peel away the backing. Alright, so I'm just using my best judgment there. I got it pretty close to where it was. And once you have that first heart down, the next ones really layer in a row pretty easily. Once I get this backing off, I'll show you how I lined it up. Basically, just taking the top V in the center of that heart and lining it right underneath the center hole where I stitched everything through there. That seemed to give really good spacing, and it helped me line everything up really well. All right, so we have everything pressed down and in place. Zoom out a little bit there so you can see things better. And that will complete card number 1. Lots of texture with all that stitching. I love it so much. So I really made all of these cards pretty much the same way. They are just different colors and some different sentiments. Here I am just creating my card base, and for that I'm using MFT's Steel Gray. I'm gonna trim that down to, see, it's 7 by 8.5, and then you score along the 7 at 3.5, which gives you your center folds. I'm just gonna use my bone folder, get a nice crisp fold on that. And then again, I will have my panels, which are trimmed to 3.25 by 8.25 to give me that little border around the edge. So this one ended up being my favorite of the bunch, I think, because of that rainbow. I love anything with a rainbow on it. I'm gonna add some ATG and place down my front panel here. I did off camera use that stamp set, and I stamped a bunch out on some vellum and some cardstock, did some heat embossing, and then trimmed out some sentiments for my Valentine's cards this year. So you'll see those laying off to the side there. I'm using some of those for 2 of these cards that I'm going to pull in and have a vellum or a cardstock piece added to that. I'm again going to take my Scor-Tape and add that to the back of all of these hearts here. And then again, I'm going to line these up just using that center hole on the bottom with the V at the top of my heart. Make sure everything is spaced out nice and even. And then we'll skip ahead here. Add on that last heart of my rainbow. And then for my sentiment, I'm pulling in this piece on vellum, which reads "Lots of Love." I stamped that on some Stamp Market vellum. They have a really nice thick vellum. I like working with it a lot. And then I used my Versamark ink and my, I believe this is Simon Says stamp, black embossing powder. I'll have to double check on that. If I'm using embossing powder, it's usually Simon Says stamp. I'm gonna run my art glitter glue behind the back of that sentiment, doing my best to keep that on the black portion there so that it doesn't leave any sort of, watermark look on my vellum. And I'll do the same here with this smaller sentiment. Just making sure that's down nice and tight because, again, it is going on top of both the thread and the cardstock. For the inside, I've again got my Nina paper panel, and I'm going to stamp out the sentiment "Hugs and Kisses" using my intense black ink for that. I'm going to add some ATG to the back, and I'll place that on the inside of my card base. And that will complete card number 2. For card number 3, again, I have created a panel. For this one, actually for the last card, I don't think I gave you all the colors that I used. They were from Stamp Market for that rainbow. It was salmon, melon, golden, leafy, seagrass, and party pink. I will have all of that linked for you below. But for this one, for the card base, I'm using cardstock from Paper Tray Ink. It is Scarlet Jewel. And then for my hearts, I again use Stamp Market, and I've got Salmon, Cherry Kisses, and Cotton Candy. So again, following the same pattern, I've added my Scor-Tape. I'm gonna press all those into place, and then I've got a heart that I stamped using that Love You Always stamp set. And for that, I use American Crafts Pigment ink in the color Blush. I'm gonna add some art glitter glue behind that, and I'll go ahead and place that on top of those two hearts there. Just gonna use my stamp block there to make sure that gets a nice and tight seal with that glue. And then while that's drying, I'm gonna pull in my Nina panel, and I'm gonna stamp out Happy Valentine's, again using my Intense Black ink. I had pulled in a cutout piece there using that same blush color, but I decided that the black looked better. I'll add some ATG to the back, place that on the inside of my card base. And that will complete card number 3. For card number 4, I'm going to use some blue tones. For the base, I'm using a Stamp Market Jade cardstock, which is a pretty dark green blue. For the hearts, I used Tropical Teal, Island, and Sea Glass. And I'm laying this one out to start out with here right on my MISTI, because I'm going to be stamping on the front panel again. So I want to make sure that where I'm placing this down is going to fit okay with my hearts. Got this love sentiment again. I'm going to run that along the side here. And again, I will stamp that using my Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink. For the inside, I'm going to stamp out the sentiment Happy Valentine's. And then we will go ahead and lay everything out and put it all together. So there I'm just, once again, laying that out, moving it over slightly to make sure that you can read my sentiment okay. I would have loved to be able to put that bottom heart down first, but the way I was layering them, that just was not going to work. So I'm doing my best here to keep that top heart as in line there as I can. Thankfully, I was able to peel away that backing pretty easily. And as I said before, once you have that first heart down, you just follow the rest in a row, and all of those measurements should work out just fine. And press this last one into place. And of course, I will add my ATG to my inside sentiments, place that down. And that will complete card number 4. Here are a few close-ups of the finished cards. In the description box below, you'll find my blog post, which has additional photos and links to the supplies I used. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a comment or a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.